am Jenna, and this is Jen and Tonic. I am very excited today because it is snowing, and this is a big deal for me because I am from Florida and I never see snow. So out here in North Texas, I guess it happens every once in a while. So needless to say, it was a very magical experience for me today. In other news, the prototype of my koozie has come in, and these will be available to purchase on my website very soon. As always, I was doing my research on the origins of the drink that I'm sharing with you today, and I really thought that I knew this one. I was in San Francisco a couple of years ago and visited the Buana Vista, where it said it was the home of the Irish coffee, and I mistakenly assumed that that meant that they invented it there. And when I was doing my research, what I learned was that it was actually invented in Ireland, which makes a lot more sense if you think about it being named the Irish coffee. It can trace its roots back to the Foynes Airport, which predates the Dublin Airport, and this was used in the 40s as a refueling station for transatlantic flights. And those flights often included a lot of politicians and movie stars. And the story goes that in a dark, stormy night in 1943, a flight made it halfway to its destination and had to stop and turn around and come back to Foynes Airport. And the chef of the restaurant there, Joe Sheridan, made this concoction to warm the weary travelers. And one of them is quoted as asking, "Is this Brazilian coffee?" And Joe responded with, "No, it's Irish coffee." The drink becomes very popular in airports, but it's not until after World War II that it makes its way to the United States, and there's two different accounts of this. The most popular one is on one fabled dark and stormy night, the travel writer Stanton Delaplane is sitting at the Buana Vista, and Joe Kepler's behind the bar, and he convinces him to make it for him. This becomes so popular that they make it their featured drink, and it becomes the home of the Irish coffee, and you can still go there and visit today. The other account that predates this is with Clementine Paddiford, who was a food critic for the New York Herald Tribune, who is said to have written this recipe for her St. Patrick's Day issue in 1948. I'm going to be making a very traditional version of this today. You won't see me use any creme de menthe because that wasn't actually in the original recipe. The original recipe was Irish whiskey, coffee, brown sugar, and heavy cream. And I'm gonna show you how to make that today. I'm gonna do a few things to set myself up for success. The first is heat my glass. And I don't recommend that you use this type of a glass, but I wanted to show you the drink in something that was clear, and all of my mugs happen to not be clear. So use a mug, please be safe. I did test this out prior to this to make sure that my glass wouldn't crack. So what you wanna do is heat up some water and then pour it in your glass so that you heat up your glass while you're making everything else. So I've got my hot water here, and I'm gonna pour a little bit of that in there to warm up my mug, well, my glass. And then I'll set that aside. And then while that is warming up, I'm gonna prepare my coffee. And you don't have to use a French press. I think it makes for a little bit richer coffee, which is why I'm using it. But whatever you got is fine. So I'm just making enough for 1 cup. So put 2 scoops of coffee in there. And then pour some water over that. And anytime that you're making French press coffee, if you haven't made it before, you wanna pour the grinds and then your hot water. And before you press it, give it a little stir, and then let it sit for a minute, like 5 minutes before you press it down so that the coffee has a chance to infuse with all of the water. All right, so while my coffee is, we'll call it marinating, I'm gonna go ahead and start building my drink. So I've poured the hot water out of my glass, and I'm gonna add a spoonful of brown sugar. The recipe calls for 2 cubes. This is one of those, make it according to how sweet that you like it. So I did that, and then now I'm ready for my coffee, which should be good. And before I press it down, I'm gonna give it one more stir, just to really incorporate everything in there. And then press it down. And that will keep all of the grounds at the bottom and the coffee at the top, which is what we want. Got my brown sugar in my glass, and then I'm gonna pour the coffee over top, and this is gonna dissolve the brown sugar. So about 4 ounces of coffee, depending on the mug that you're using, will do it. And then take a spoon and stir that until your sugar is dissolved. Once your sugar is dissolved, go ahead and add your whiskey. I'm using Jameson, very traditional today. Use whatever you like here. So I've got 2 ounces of that. Give that one more stir, and then ready for the final step. So for the last step, I'm going to show you how to make the heavy cream to where it'll sit on top of your coffee. And Joe Kepler actually had such a problem figuring out how to get the cream to stay on top of the coffee that he went back to Ireland to the man himself, Joe Sheridan, and asked him to share his recipe with him. And I wanted to share with you the notes that I took on what he said the original recipe was. And he said, the cream is rich as an Irish brogue, the coffee is strong as a friendly hand, the sugar is sweet as the tongue of a rogue, and the whiskey smooth as the wit of the land. When you make whipped cream from scratch, you're applying that concept here. You're just not whipping it as much as you would. You just want to get it like kind of half whipped. And I'm using this little device that I got off of Amazon, and I can include a link for you. It's great when you're making froth for cappuccinos as well. So what you want to do, make sure that you put it in the cream before you start the button, which is what I did earlier when I was practicing, and it went everywhere. So go ahead and turn it on, and you really just want to get a little bit of thickness to it. So about half frothed, not a full whipped cream that's going to stand up like you would see in a container, but just enough to get some air in there so that it stands up on top of your coffee for you. Another thing that's really important is to use cold, heavy cream. This helps it to whip much better. Something else that I read was that Joe Sheridan actually ended up moving to San Francisco. I guess he helped Joe Kepler over there and liked it so much that he ended up living out the rest of his days there. Back to my coffee mug. So final step, take your bar spoon and turn it upside down and roll the cream off of the spoon into your glass. And this is gonna help it to stay on top of the coffee for you. This is so smooth. I don't like mine to be very sweet. To me, the coffee is so rich in this one from the French press. You get a little bit of sweetness from the sugar. You definitely taste the Jameson. And then the cream, it's crazy because the coffee is hot, but the cream is still really cold. So it's a very interesting mixture of temperatures there. Perfect for a snowy day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this video and leave any comments that you have for me below. I'd love to hear if you make this, how you did, and if you need any tips, I'm here for you as well. I am Jenna, and this is Gin and Tonic. Cheers.